James Harden. Step back three. Good! Right between the eyes. Gerald Green to inbound. Harden trying to get free. Down to three, down to two. It's a three. Good! Good! He got it! James Harden, a flamethrower! Incredible shot!
Art imitates life, and life imitates art, is what I would say if I was your stupid English teacher. I am not your English teacher, and this is a badass book that doesn't get its due from a modern audience. There is science fiction, and then there's the OG of science fiction. There is the unwatchable Oklahoma City Thunder, and then there's the OG of analytical hoops, the James Harden Houston Rockets. There is the visionary author of this tentpole in fiction, Mary Shelley, and then there is the man who mainstreamed playing analytical hoops, Daryl Morey. And finally, there is one of the most iconic characters of horror ever created, Frankenstein's monster, recognized now by his green skin, lumbering walk, and his large stature. In basketball, there is a man transformed from a solid six-man on an NBA Finals team into a statistical monster known for causing rants such as this one.
And since that time, allow me to throw some numbers at you. Since December 8th, he's dropped 35, 29, 50, 32, 47, 35, 35, 39, 41, 45, 41, 43, 44, 38, 32, 42, 43, 38, 57, and 58. Do you understand what you're witnessing? I mean, just the disrespect, the lack of appreciation for this brother is blasphemous.
Recognizable by his stepbacks, floaters, and infamous foul baiting, he is Daryl Morey's monster, James Harden. Frankenstein starts at the end, and so this is where we will start with Daryl Morey. Pulled from the icy, angry streets of Philadelphia, the mad Dr. Daryl Morey isn't quite emaciated, but he is without a job and scorned by some pretty hefty mistakes that occurred during his tenure. Unlike Dr. Frankenstein, we don't have to hear his story relayed to us by a random ship hand. We got to see his rise and fall live on our TV screens. Now let's dive into the parallels between these two characters. Inspired by the work of Bill James in analytics, Daryl Morey began an obsession with applying similar ideas to a basketball team. Taking a page from Dr. Frankenstein's book, he heads off to a place where he can start implementing these ideas, gaining more and more information ready to be deployed onto the hardwood. Instead of a stormy night providing the power to bring his creation to life, the owner of the Houston Rockets was struck by inspiration reading the incredible Moneyball. He hired Morey and eventually promoted him to general manager of the team, giving him everything necessary to put his ideas into action. In the fall of 2012, Daryl made the transaction that would turn his theories into reality, signing James Harden. Fellow mad scientists agreed with the signing, displayed by the Sloan Conference attendee who wore a t-shirt that argued that James Harden was one of the most undervalued players in the NBA. Little did Morey know what a monster this would turn into. Dr. Frankenstein abandons his monster at conception, horrified by what he has created. He even gets sick and is unable to continue to work. Morey does not abandon his creation, but he can only do so much to influence what happens on the court as a general manager. In both instances, the monster was left to its own devices. Both monsters were left to learn. The monster in Morey's case had some negative reactions, like a buzzer beater killing a 2014 playoff run. Frankenstein's monster's most significant experience in the infancy of its life was the chance to observe an example of everything that it wished to be. Frankenstein's monster watches a family and the loving interactions between them. James Harden observed the rise of the Golden State Warriors and the explosive way they deployed the three-pointer. Frankenstein's monster absorbed the English language, and the Rockets started shooting the three-pointer. A lot. Like a record-setting amount of three-pointers. They made 1,100 of them, and then 1,300 of them. Each monster was ready now to face its teacher, and the student proved not to be as good as the masters. Frankenstein is driven off by the cottage residents, and in possibly a more horrible scene, the 2018 Rockets blew a 15-point lead and missed 27 straight three-pointers to lose in Game 7 to the Warriors, only to do it again the following year in Game 6. Both monsters come to their creator upset that they do not have proper companionship. The monster was rejected by the people in the cottage, and James Harden rejected his running mate at every turn. Unsatisfied by Dwight Howard and getting in a nasty argument with Chris Paul during their losing series, Dr. Frankenstein takes time to consider and begins putting together another monster. Daryl Morey brings in Russell Westbrook. Both moves turn into the death sentence of their lives and their reputations. As the Doctor throws the parts of the monster into the sea, the monster vows to be with him on his wedding night, and the Doctor returns to his town only to be accused of murder. After a 4-game series loss to the Lakers, the head coach of the Rockets is dismissed, and Daryl Morey steps down from his position as general manager. Both the Doctor and Morey are left to clean up the pieces. As we have seen from the beginning, things only get worse for our two main characters as their monsters begin to take their toll on the world. Both of these stories are infinitely entertaining. I'm not even a James Harden fan, and I find myself on some nights muttering, 2018 James Harden was a problem. But both stories occurred to teach us some valuable lessons. The lesson that I always brood on is the reality of how important a team is in a team game. Across sports, those people who make decisions, whether it be team owners or general managers, they seem to think if they collect these 1 or 2 important players, everything else will just fall into perfect place and their story will end with holding the championship trophy. This is almost never the case. There are just too many factors that go into human beings being really good at their sport. Whether it's a young man who can't be bothered to put in the work necessary to win, or it may be a guy that just can't stay healthy, or it's a guy that just is never satisfied with what he is given. They all eventually not only destroy themselves, but they often destroy the hopes of teammates, organizations, and the fans. Still, organizations keep shelling out money and making the biggest splash that they can possibly conceive of. Another part of the game that exists downstream of this issue is the problem of team cohesion. This is the merging of talents, the merging of goals, and then the sacrifice for one another. This is something that not even the greatest minds in sports have been able to crack. And it is an interesting thought experiment in the case of Frankenstein. Was the monster bad to begin with? Was there always going to be a trigger that set off this explosion of evil acts? Or was it all within the circumstances he was placed in? If the Doctor had loved him more, would he have been evil? If the cottage had taken him in, would he have lived a peaceful life? There's no way to know. Would James Harden have won the championship if he was given the correct teammate? Would James Harden have gone down as the greatest Rocket ever if he had just not been given everything that he asked for by the management above him? We will never know. All we know is the destruction that was left behind in both of their lives. I think English teachers suck at their jobs quite a bit. If only they knew ball. That's one of my favorite things about following every sport is the incredible storylines that emerge during every year. Frankenstein was published in 1818, and there is no way in hell that Mary Shelley could have predicted that her story would play out in the form of some of the nastiest stretches of basketball we have ever seen from a player.
He's shooting threes. He's getting to the hole at will. He gets to the free throw line at will. He's averaging 40.
Next time you are nagged about reading some of the classics, just think to yourself, I know ball. Where have I seen this before? You'll probably quickly find out that not only does life imitate art, but sports imitate art as well. Or is it life being imitated? Who cares? Watch this guy get his ankles snatched.
To work. I thought it was going to be...
Oh, man, hard. Oh, he stared at Wesley Johnson, and then he hit the three. Wow. He put him on the deck, and then he hesitated.
Turnover. Let's take a look. Allow me to have this dance. Down goes Johnson. Too much sauce.